And spiritual spaghetti buffet dinner. I extend my humblest gratitude to our early bird acolytes and minions. And as always, hail Pastafarians! For those of you who have missed the schism and brutal sectarian warfare caused by my little outburst in Providence this past August, I want to extend an especially warm welcome and heartfelt gratitude for your fatal curiosity. As many of you longtime festival patrons may have noticed, this event has replaced the EOD's Cthulhu Prayer Breakfast. This was not a purely political decision, and there were many other issues aside from Bob's allergies and my raging hangovers. The real reason was that ever since the Supreme Court decision regarding corporate personhood and employer religious protection, the event has become a nightmare. Chase Manhattan Bank attended last year, only bought one ticket and ate over 13,000 plates of powdered eggs and left no tip. Ergo, the Temple of Yog-Sothoth has a strict one body, one brain policy. But we've grandfathered in the Callaghans. Now, in the spirit of liberal equality, the esoteric Order of Dagon will be given equal time to rebut our evidence-backed assertions that they're metaphysically castrated and like to jar their own farts. Now, Yog-Sothoth has always been worshipped principally by rogue wizards, loners, and degenerate inbred Cannibal Hill folk. But no matter how blinded we might be by our megalomania or having been born without eyes, we are united around our common belief in a higher authority whose unfathomable wrongness makes our own deformities and perversions seem tame and acceptable. Can any religion really claim to offer anything more? We believe that these uncertain times call for a new kind of occultist association, one not mired in the ossified traditions of the 1920s, but which boldly leaps forward to the 1980s. One which looks not to the rising acidic plastic-choked abyss of the oceans, but to the boundless depths of transdimensional space for its salvation. For while you're shoveling ancient Big Mac containers out of Rilliers rain gutters, we'll be grooving on the Voyager record and smoking Timothy Leary's ashes on Yogurt. You have a choice, consumers, and never has the illusion of free will seemed less illusory. Now, if you or someone you know might be a Yog-Sothite, you shall know it in the cream-filled center of the marrow of your bones. But if you still don't, this handy checklist will come in handy. Number 1. If the Westboro Baptist Church protested your birth, you might be a Yog-Sothite. Number 2, if every library on earth known to have in their secure collection a copy of the Necronomicon has your picture on the wall of shame in its special collection, you might be a Yog-Sothite. If occult alchemists have tampered with the fundamental laws of nature and combined the plutonium drug, megospores, and transdimensional substances from the Guric zone to render an antidepressant that works on you, you might be a Yog-Sothite. If, before sealing the witch's pact by kissing the devil upon his backside, Satan has ever offered you a breath mint, you might be a Yog-Sothite. And finally, if you're abstaining from eating or drinking tonight because food or drink will render you visible, you might be a Yog-Sothite. And now the blessing. Today, at the end of our hope, at the edge of our dinner break, we have chosen not only to feed on ourselves, but on each other. Today, we are eating the monsters that are at our door, and we are rescheduling the apocalypse for a quarter from 15 minutes ago. For we hold in our hearts that Yog-Sothoth knows all that we shall do or say, for he did and said it when he was us. For in the fullness of an infinite multiverse, only Yog-Sothoth is the key and the gate and the guardian of the gate and the doorbell beside the gate, which summons the doorman, which is also he to the aforementioned gate to let in the uninvited hungry house guest, who is he but also you. And so we say unto thee, our Savior, who is also us, try not to embarrass yourself, Lord. Now, if you have a taste for the doomed, the deformed, the tragically, hopelessly flawed, you should enjoy this next attempt at entertainment. You may have noticed a slip of paper on your table beside your food, which you have unwittingly eaten. Now, in spite of its mainstream success, the few critics who actually bought their hastily assembled Kindle King in Yellow Super Multipacks complained that the True Detective series bore little or no aesthetic relationship to the gritty noir police procedural show. As usual, this dispute could have been solved with a quick review of the King in Yellow Teacher's Edition. As an added facet of mystery, Robert Chambers' presentation of the lyric Casilda's song from the King in Yellow was printed with mysterious spacing in the last lines of each verse, so as to suggest lost or expurgated text. This was not an empty stylistic flourish, but a sad fact of publishing, for the omitted lines were considered by his publishers to be gibberish. But restored to their proper place for the first time tonight, they revealed the sinister prescience of the notorious French play, which contained hints that its mad author Montaigne not only was aware of the strange new permutations that would overtake his invention, but that he seemed to see outside of time and into this very room. To wit, join in, any of you who can follow. Along the shores the cloud waves break, the twin suns sink behind the lake, the shadows lengthen like bottomless mimosas, with the tweakers snuff-lit making biker trash in Carcosa. Strange is the night where black stars rise and strange moons circle through the skies, but stranger still is the yellow Testarossa, bought with Kickstarter funds in Lost Carcosa. Songs that the Hyades shall sing, where flap the Tartars of the king, must die unheard in the old Ponderosa. When little Joe Pulver's lost in dim Carcosa. Song of my soul, my voice is dead, die thou unsung as tears unshed, shall dry undying seasoned Osa. When rust and cold jumps the shark in Lost Carcosa. And now, as previously threatened, in the interest of equal metaphysical time, we shall hear a few odious moments from the Grand Hierophant of the Esoteric Order of Dagon.
I'm glad to be with you at this ecumenical gathering. As you know, last August, His Holiness Cody Badfellow dared to utter the worst kinds of blasphemy against our Lord Great Cthulhu. As anyone with a three-lobed burning eye could see, it was a pathetic theology of sour grapes that he was promoting. Cody bemoaned the declining membership of the Cthulhu cult, the failure of our evangelistic campaigns. You know, the thing on the doorstep, door-to-door ministry, also known as Dagon's Witnesses, or our campus distribution of paperback paraphrases of the Al-Azif under the title, Unbelievably Bad News for Modern Man. The Reverend Badfellow inferred from these minor setbacks that the mighty dweller in the depths was running out of steam and no longer deserved our worship. But the truth is that he was blaming the God for his own failures and those of other backsliders like himself. 'Tis a poor acolyte who blames his gods. Cody has chosen to try and force an ill-advised wedge between those bosom buddies, Great Cthulhu and Yog-Sothoth, leading many of the easily deceived weaker brethren into a heretical schism. An oddly angled house divided against itself cannot stand. Now, far be it from me to Secondly, he's a bum. Look, you're talking about worshipping a guy who was the inspiration for Globy on Pee-wee's Playhouse. He's basically a cosmic doorman without a uniform. He can't get anybody to worship him unless he bribes them with gold doubloons. And it's not like he watches over his devotees. He can't even protect you from a guard dog in the library. And let's not forget that little escapade with the albino girl. You remember the sexual harassment scandal and the paternity suit that followed it? That humiliation still hasn't died down. You still hear people singing that song, "They'll never win you from Lavinia." Yes, my friends, we must pity Cody Badfellow, late with the Cthulhu cult, but now wallowing in idolatrous superstition. And equally pity that contemptible bag of tentacles he serves. Now, let me extend an invitation to those of you who may have been led astray by that Pied Piper of putrescence. Won't you come back into great Cthulhu's welcoming tendrils? Softly and tenderly Cthulhu is calling, calling, oh snack food, come home. If you came with friends, they'll wait on you. You come.
I do apologize. So, like many of you, I did my due diligence for the temple and stayed home from work to do some recruiting last Monday, because that's when all the best itinerant evangelists troll my neighborhood, recruiting for their crazy, whacked out, and totally wrong religions. Not that I'm looking to add these pathetic weirdos to our congregation, but if you can think of a better way to target potential virgin sacrifices in this day and age, I'm all ears. So anyway, these pimply, stoop-shouldered Kool-Aid jockeys from a cult which must not be named came to the door, and I warmly welcomed them. We met in the kitchen because I was repainting the parlor, having already entertained some Mormons earlier that morning. And before I even seated them in the breakfast nook with the sticky trapdoor that never seems to open until the third pull on the lever, the missionary asked me if I knew where I was going to be spending eternity. I told him, right here, with you. And I got us some peyote tea and an ergot-sweetened brown Betty, and we had us a regular diet of worms. Of course, to be a good host and to wait until the hallucinogens kicked in, I patiently heard them out first. And their pitch was quite familiar to anyone who's attended a Cthulhu prayer breakfast or read any fairy tales. Kiss a frog and expect a miracle. Now, if I wanted to be mated with a shambling amphibian monstrosity, I'd succumb to answering the Ashley Madison spam in my mailbox. And if I wanted to spend eternity at the bottom of the South Pacific, I'd fly Malaysian Airlines. Never too soon. But I smilingly waited until they had exhausted themselves and their little pop eyes were pretty much all pupil, and then I put on some relaxing mood music. And I asked them if they happened to know where Cthulhu came from. And they professed complete ignorance. Could it be that they had not read from the Book of Derleth? Could they have not dipped their beaks into the bird bath of Arcana that is the Lumley Codex, or dined on the banquet of metaphysical guano that is all that awful crap Lynn Carter wrote? For according to scripture, Cthulhu is descended from, wait for it, Yog-Sothoth, and is apparently the half-soap bubble brother of Hastur, and has an unacknowledged paternal twin, Cathanid, who looks exactly like Cthulhu but encrusted with gold and precious stones, and has a totally hot human daughter who was common law married with Titus Crow, a cult detective, until he dumped her for the Octomom because apparently less baggage. And let's not even get into the issue of his many, many estranged children, Gatanathoa, Zothomnog, Ithagtha, and Kethilla, or his many humiliating hookups with Idya and Zoth, or the embarrassing sex tape he cut with Nyarlathotep in his most feared incarnation as Kris Kardashian, which unholy union yielded Ilith La. who is a fairly decent club DJ Tuesday nights at the Viper Room. Yes, he was born out of a soap bubble and sired more bastards than Screamin' Jay Hawkins and Storm Thurmond put together. How eldritch does your Messiah sound now? Don't you wish they could put Screamin' Jay Hawkins and Storm Thurmond together? Of course, one was naturally tempted to deride the derelict Carter and Lumley Tex's apocryphal haptacular phlegm obstructing the corpus delicti of the mythos. But you could also dismiss all those endorsements of infanticide, genocide, and slavery in the Old Testament because Jehovah was a product of his times and wanted to be popular. Whatever you think of this dubious origin story, to dismiss the mountains of evidence of Cthulhu's pseudopods of clay would be as ridiculous as dismissing the evidence of human activity driving global climate change. But if you do dismiss it, that'd be really great, because I could really use several cigarettes right now. Now, I didn't come here to mock anyone's religious beliefs. I get plenty of that at home, thank you, Internet. I know changing faiths is a bigger step than switching from Cheese Whiz to Velveeta. But to progress from blind faith in an indifferent cosmic entity to blind faith in one that's slightly less overexposed is healthy spiritual evolution. You guys can bubble anytime now. And hey, I wasn't going to say anything, but I remember a lot of you from the Zoroastrian meetups at Voodoo Donut and the Ballin' for Ball pagan singles hookups at the Beaverton Hot Tub-a-Rama. So don't come across like you're all born into this thing. Half of you aren't even pop-eyed. So, back in my kitchen, because I could tell they were peeking, I proceeded to tell them about my God, whose unspeakable gospel is currently running as a miniseries on basic cable. Oh, well, the more you know about Cthulhu, the less he seems like a god and more like something the Power Rangers could handle. The more you know about Yog-Sothoth, the less you understand him, kind of like life with his speech. He was begat by the nameless mist, who or which he's only known for having begotten Yog-Sothoth. How's that for an elegant origin story? For he is not merely the most fearsome narcoleptic in the universe, he is the endlessly percolating, infinitely conflicted sentience of the universe itself. Like many of you, I've been greedily consuming the soul-withering incunabula, encoded for our secret gnosis, behind a tissue-thin filter of fuzzy anthropocentrism. Of course, I speak of Cosmos. And I get a bit behind, because my cousin in Oklahoma, who gets cable, tapes them for me. And while I've seen very little that was controversial, no matter how stoned you make him sound by slowing his voice down, Neil's dreamy hot chocolate funk subtext is inescapable. In Neil's cosmic year, Cthulhu is born out of wedlock on Vorel in the 23rd nebula around Arbor Day, and turns up uninvited and surly drunk on an already populated Earth just in time to ruin cosmic Halloween by going to war with the Elder Things. By Thanksgiving, he's already sleeping it off in Rillier, hiding behind a skein of lies thinner than the excuses you all use to get out of work and come here this weekend.
Oh yeah, I know I'm a water deity, but the whole house is flooded. I gotta wait for the plumber. Yeah, these elder signs really knocked out my immune system. I'm sure I'll be fine, come in as soon as the stars are right.
But who is omnipresent and omnipimpin' from Cosmic New Year's to Cosmic New Year's Eve? Holding it down on every corner of every inanimate molecule, waxing and milking the sudsy mess of our multiverse like some nth-dimensional superfly?
Shut your mouth.
We also offer an improv class, which I urge you all to attend. Yes, that Yog-Sothoth is one bad mother.
Shut your mouth.
Of an elder god. Can you dig it?
I can dig it.
And whether we hope to spend the uncertain future praying for Cthulhu's hangover cure, or winging our way across the endless abyss in a brain cylinder, or telepathically migrating through time and space to displace a lesser species, as the great race of Yith did with the monopedal mollusk creatures of Gondwanaland, and as the serpent people of Hyperborea did with the population of Anaheim in the 1960s, we need a superior being who will be there to not be there for us when we need him the least. By this time, my young visitors were tripping balls and most eager to serve the temple in any way they could. So I asked them if they were virgins. Rotten luck. But at least the trapdoor worked on the first pull. So I got started baking another brown Betty and proceeded to wait for the men from Moloch. But I'd hate for you to go away from this event thinking of me as just a hate monger. So I would like to show you something else I'm rather fond of monging. A little dark art I picked up in the Far East during my Peace Corps sojourn among the Cho-Cho people on the plateau of Lang. They call it karaoke. Suction cup hickeys, insanity losses, invisible star vampires who scoff at your crosses, the night sky eclipsed by cyclopean wings. These are a few most unspeakable things. Forbidden books turn your brains into pudding. Nile at the Tep, Johnny Depp, Cuba Gooding. Dance on L. Ron Hubbard's corpse till it sings. Here comes some more most unspeakable things. Sacrilegious people impaled on steeples. Humanity has sown it and so shall they reap. All men as puppets on yellow sign strings, jerked upon by most unspeakable things. When cyclomorons declare war on everyone who's not dumb, I just remember unspeakable things and then I don't feel so bummed. Weird shit you see when your pineal gland's swollen. Ghouls eat your brains, use your skulls to go bowling. Nightmares that prey upon peasants and kings. These are a few more unspeakable things. Misshapen mutants who feast on your fibula, fungi who jack your brain to the crab nebula, dole's boundless hunger for planet eating, ripped for the pleasure of unspeakable things. Idiot with melanoma, satanic monuments in Oklahoma. If God made man, she was only joking. How about those for unspeakable things? When Orson Scott Card's a fat gay retard, when I want to puke, and I just think of unspeakable things, and then I don't need this nuke. When childhood's raped by bad remakes, when I want to croak, I showed my doctor unspeakable things, and now I can legally talk. Thank you, everybody. With your support, I'm getting better. This concludes the organized portion of our spiritual revival. We were hoping to attend to some fascinating testimonials regarding how Yog-Sothoth has touched some of our pillars of our community. Is Clancy even here?
I believe he's insane, sir.
That's why we want it. Okay, so that's not going to happen. Enjoy your meal.
My accompanist, Mars Homeworld. Robert M. Price.
Thanks, everybody. Enjoy the rest of the weekend. We do have one more feature. don't even notice anymore. We do have one more speech from Robert M. Price, which I'm not going to make fun of.
Hail Hydra.
Or if you like the opposition to Oreos, the Hail Hydrox, bring them back. Let's see here. This is a little bit of a serious attempt to provoke some thought. See if it works. We enjoy the joke of pretending that there are cults of Cthulhu and Yog-Sothoth. Obviously I do. But it raises a serious question I've thought of many, many times over the years. Can there be a Lovecraftian spirituality? I don't mean the fanatical hero worship we're inclined to direct toward the prophet from Providence. Though like the Elvis cult, that does have some marks of a religion. The pilgrimages we make to the holy sites mentioned in Lovecraft's stories, commemoration of his birth and death, so on. I'm proud to say that, speaking of testimonials, that Lovecraft has profoundly influenced my life, which I think you probably know. I think that Lovecraft himself experienced a real spirituality and expressed it matchlessly well. Let me read you the evidence. The winter sunset, flaming beyond spires and chimneys half detached from this dull sphere, opens great gates to some forgotten year of elder splendors and divine desires. Expectant wonders burn in those rich fires, adventure fraught and not untinged with fear. A row of sphinxes where the way leads clear toward walls and turrets quivering to far lyres. It is the land where beauty's meaning flowers, where every unplaced memory has a source, where the great river time begins its course down the vast void in starlit streams of hours. Dreams bring us close, but ancient lore repeats that human tread has never soiled these streets. It is a certain hour of twilight glooms, mostly in autumn, when the star wind pours down hilltop streets, deserted out of doors, but showing early lamplight from snug rooms. The dead leaves rush in strange, fantastic twists, and chimney smoke whirls round with alien grace, heating geometries of outer space, while Fomalhaut peers in through southward mists. This is the hour when moonstruck poets know what fungi sprout in Yog-Sothoth and what scents and tints of flowers fill Nithon's continents, such as in no poor earthly garden blow. Yet for each dream these winds to us convey, a dozen more of ours they sweep away. I cannot tell why some things hold for me a sense of unplumbed marvels to befall, or of a rift in the horizon's wall, opening to worlds where only gods can be. There is a breathless, vague expectancy as of vast ancient pomps I half recall, or wild adventures, uncorporeal ecstasy fraught, and as a daydream free. It is in sunsets and strange city spires, old villages and woods and misty downs, south winds, the sea, low hills and lighted towns, old gardens, half-heard songs, and the moon's fires. But though its lure alone makes life worth living, none gains or guesses what it hints at giving. I never can be tied to raw new things, for I first saw the light in an old town, where from my window huddled roofs sloped down to a quaint harbor rich with visionings, streets with carved doorways where the sunset beams flooded old fan lights and small window panes, and Georgian steeples topped with gilded vanes. These were the sights that shaped my childhood dreams. Such treasures, left from times of cautious leaven, cannot but loose the hold of flimsier wraiths that flit with shifting ways and muddled faiths across the changeless walls of earth and heaven. They cut the moment's thongs and leave me free to stand alone before eternity. How can I say Lovecraft had the spiritual experience when he didn't believe in God? Well, scoffed at belief in God. Well, I see no inconsistency. In fact, I think that a belief in God may actually inhibit spirituality. Let me explain what I mean. HPL already as a boy was drawn toward beckoning oblivion. One day he pedaled his bike into the country and stopped by a stream. He looked at it somewhat, I imagine, as Siddhartha did in Hermann Hesse's novel. His mind was burdened by the meaninglessness of life. I'm guessing his preoccupation with the night skies of astronomy was to blame. We trace his philosophy of cosmicism and futilitarianism to his absorption in the vastness of the heavens. Their magnitude and emptiness spoke to him of his own and mankind's utter insignificance in the scheme of things. I think his youthful toying with suicide was a reaction to the same stunning insight. What made him hesitate and turn his bicycle around to head for home and to life? It was the very same thing. There was, after all, a meaning to life. And it too was to be found in the starry voids and in the earthly nature here below. As a young scientist, he found the splendor and beauty of things just too fascinating not to spend a lifetime enjoying and understanding them. And that he set about doing. If a cosmic perspective rudely shoved Homo sapiens off his pedestal, dislodging him from center stage, it also enabled him, at least it enabled Lovecraft, to see what actually was at the center of the stage, everything else. This, of course, is why he also reduced his story protagonists to the function of a mere window through which wonders might be viewed. Long ago, Fritz Leiber made the essential observation about Lovecraft and his mythos. He correctly pegged Lovecraft's vision of cosmic horror as synonymous with what Rudolf Otto called the numinous experience, the urgency of uncanny fear, holy terror, prompted by the ripping away of the worldly veil, which, by the way, is the literal meaning of the word apocalypse. We cower in terror at the wholly other thus revealed, and yet we do not flee because we sense that the other, being infinite, possesses all that we as finite creatures lack, and thus we are at once both terrified and enthralled. Even if we perish like moths, we must fly to the flames, for once we encounter that fulfilling knowledge, we will become one with it, even in the moment we're consumed. And that is the obsessive quest of Lovecraft's protagonists. And it's the quest of the mystic, of the Sufi, the non-dualist, the Taoist, of Meister Eckhart. Usually such people say they've encountered God, or else what Tillich called the God above God. Lovecraft certainly did not call it that, but he did refer to it as the infinite, whose sides the ages are. There have been other atheists with mystical experiences. They recognize that they are experiences, and they don't draw any ontological inferences from it. They do not indulge in what Derrida called presence metaphysics. I think that's how Lovecraft viewed the matter. No fan of Plato or his metaphysics, he would not have inferred the existence of any real entity behind his experiences. After all, Lovecraft said he was trying to create the liberating illusion of freeing the reader from the claustrophobic chains of the laws of nature. Bringing God into the matter is like smothering the fire with a wet blanket. Our raw, immediate experience upon beholding the stunning universe, so vast that we may momentarily forget that we exist, is gaping, breathless wonder, pure awe. The moment we try to contain that experience in a doctrine of a creator God, we sap the wonder away. The balloon is punctured, the tire goes flat. Our wonder is dispelled like when we make the mistake of watching one of those behind the scenes, the making of documentaries that show how the technicians faked the wonders of Star Wars or the Lord of the Rings. Oh, so that's how they did it. I guess it's not such a big deal after all. This is why stage magicians don't reveal their tricks. They want to be able to keep you guessing. And a large part of wondering at is wondering how. And positing a creator God is like seeing how clever people fabricated the special effects. Okay, I got that one figured out. The magic, the mystical has been reduced to the mundane. It has shrunk from a mystery that in the nature of the case can never be explained to a mere problem like a puzzle solution at the bottom of the page. There's no name for it because there's no it. It is a vast experience of what is vast. Wonder is a hunger, but again, in the nature of things, it is a hunger that can never be satisfied. We yearn for the infinite, and paradoxically, that yearning is as close as we can ever get to it. We can never contain the infinite, never swallow it. We can only stretch the bounds of our reaching, our longing, our hunger. And that is the growth, the expansion of the soul. The yearning is the satisfaction. It is the only way to experience something that can be neither confined nor contained. It is to bask in the mystery which is revealed as a mystery. That is the vision of H.P. Lovecraft, the spirituality of Lovecraft and of Lovecraftians. There is in certain ancient things a trace of some dim essence, more than form or weight, a tenuous ether, indeterminate, yet linked with all the laws of time and space, a faint, veiled sign of continuities that outward eyes can never quite descry, of locked dimensions harboring years gone by, and out of reach except for hidden keys. It moves me most when slanting sunbeams glow on old farm buildings set against a hill and paint with life the shapes which linger still from centuries less a dream than this we know. In that strange light, I feel I am not far from that fixed mass whose sides the ages are. Thank you.